Hello and welcome to another episode of the Full Force Weekly, brought to you by Generals Joe's REBORN.com with me as your host, Christopher McLeod AKA Diagnostik80. For today's episode, I'm joined by the awesome Patrick Notpicard Stewart. In this regular video series, we round up all the week's news in the world of G.I. Joe. What is it, Pat?
It's the Full Force Weekly.
Yes, it is. It's the Full Force Weekly. How you doing, my good man?
Doing okay. You know, very busy week for me. So I apologize if I'm a little bit tired, a little bit out of it today.
You just take a nap and I'll deal with this. Don't you worry.
Well, I probably shouldn't have done that swing into the camera thing because when I do that, I'm down there long enough, I start to get lightheaded. It'd be great if one week I just was like, it's the Full Force.
Or you just hear snoring in the background. That would be great. Hope everyone's doing well. We've got a few people in the chat already. Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's having a good Friday so far. It's 1 o'clock-ish. I know we're a bit late. Sorry. I got a bit talky with Pat before the show. So that's why we were a bit late, because I wasn't concentrating and I was just yabbing, as I do. Hope everyone's having a good day. I hope everyone has a great weekend this weekend. It's been a bit of a rough week, actually, in terms of what we're going to be talking about. Lots of sort of stories, but there's a couple. We've got some things to look forward to, but at the same time, mate, it's been a bit rough, hasn't it, this week?
Yeah, I'd say that's accurate. Yeah, it's not all the news this week is good. I think everybody is aware of that it's just not everything is positive. There's some bad stuff.
A lot of people saying Merry H.I.S.S, though, which is good. Yeah, that was pretty cool. We'll talk about the H.I.S S shortly. And I suppose I've got some sort of hideous unboxing to do. I don't know how I'm going to do that. That thing is huge. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go on to our first news story of the week, which unfortunately we're going to talk about it, and it is very depressing. Hasbro layoffs news. Hasbro have been doing Hasbro again this week as a huge 1,100 layoffs occurred right before the holidays. The Providence building is being vacated as the lease comes to an end and the workforce is being consolidated into the Pawtucket building. The company came under fire for the decision this week as the internet exploded, and quite rightly in all honesty. The timing is terrible and is clearly a way for the numbers to look better before the next shareholder meeting, but you have to say that this is a little too cold even for Hasbro standards. Thankfully, the Joe team got out of the mess unscathed, but we did hear that Michael Kelly was let go, which was a real surprise given his work on a number of brands recently, including G.I. Joe's new comic publisher Skybound, and his stellar work on the publishing and licensing side for years. We wish all of those who lost their jobs this week all the best, and you have our condolences. Yes. Absolutely rubbish news. First of all, let's kind of make this quite clear. I did reach out to the people I know at Hasbro, obviously Lenny, Emily, Tony, etc., and yeah, that they're not affected by this particular situation, which is great. But at the same time, lots of people were affected, including Michael Kelly, which I think was a big surprise, actually, Pat. I mean, were you surprised to hear Michael Kelly getting let go?
Very, yeah. I mean, it doesn't really make sense to let go some of the people that are handling your relationships with other people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just going to be a tough thing for somebody else to step into. I mean, and it's just weird too to let people go only to have to immediately replace them. It's not like that position can be eliminated.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like this is where kind of Hasbro as a corporation really does kind of unfortunately take over. And, you've got this situation where they cut. I mean, it is very short-sighted, I feel personally. And it's so transparent as well. I mean, obviously they're looking here to improve the outlook of a difficult period for shareholders. And I kind of feel like sometimes, would you as a shareholder, Pat, be more kind of confident with this kind of approach, or would you be more confident with a more long-term approach where they look to where to improve in those areas rather than that short-term kind of fix?
Just looking at Hasbro over time, maybe just share investors fall for this all the time from companies in general, but with Hasbro, this has just been a thing for like the last 30 years that, things get bad. They have a huge number of layoffs. And I think that as somebody, looking to invest in companies, it kind of makes Hasbro not as appealing to invest in for me personally.
Totally.
Like, I feel like I should be all in on Hasbro because not just G.I. Joe, but Transformers and a ton of their past brands. I
Little
love some of the
Pony.
stuff they put out. What?
My Little Pony.
I've supported My Little Pony pretty heavily several years ago when my niece was collecting it. So, yeah, I mean, throw in My Little Pony. Why not?
It's in there. You got it. That's safe.
Yeah, but it's just like, it's almost like I see what you're doing. I'm not falling for your trick. That's not really going to solve your problem.
Right.
And how are they padding out their workforce? Because the number of layoffs that we hear, how long does it take them to rehire so that they have enough people like on the payroll to cut again whenever
I know.
Whenever unrelated things happen and the toy industry doesn't do that well.
I think as a full company, isn't it something like, I want to say it's like in the region of like 6,000 to 7,000, I think it was.
I think we and we talked about this a lot. This is not the first time that we've even talked about this topic.
This year. This is the third time this year we've talked about layoffs, by the way. We had that one at the start of the year, didn't we? Or like maybe in the calendar year. I was not in a calendar year, in an exact year time. I think we've talked about this 3 times. There's been one big one that, obviously the one that took Corey, that was a shocker.
Yeah.
And then, obviously we're talking about that at the time and that how kind of crap that situation was. And then you get to the end of the year and it happens again, but it happens so brutally. And that is a lot. I mean, was it 800 at the start of the year? Another 1,100 now? It's crazy to me to think that, like the turnover, that's massive. They're not hiring 1,000 people back. Not a chance.
Over time, I would think that eventually they're going to have to replace them, don't you think? Unless their plan is to really just become a smaller company.
I think
a smaller scope.
I think when you think about it, if they're getting rid of their Providence building and they're consolidating, immediately you don't need as much staff. Like, there's a lot of
true.
If you think about the kind of I suppose the level of like, maintenance on the building and people that you need to staff that and need to kind of run that as an operation, that isn't necessary anymore. So there you're just taking people from that building that do the work that is kind of, almost necessary, that isn't part of the building scenario. Then you've probably cut a chunk of workforce out like that.
So are they going to be outsourcing, or did they find new efficiencies? What are they going to be doing?
I don't know exactly, but I have a feeling there's an element of hiring directly out of college, like interns and, kind of hiring those kind of people and positions to kind of go so they can go up to the ladder only to fall off the top of it when they get there. Do you know, that's what it feels like, isn't it? It doesn't feel like you've got like it's certainly not a safe scenario to go to Hasbro, build a career, and then be like, I'm going to be here for 20 years. You
just have to assume that it's going to be something to put on your resume, not going to be a destination for a full career, which is, happens to a very limited number of people that get to stay there for a really long time. But that does seem to be a limited number. It often even feels to me like they just want their workforce to be a younger group of people. Possibly. And I can almost understand that, because a younger group of people may have that more recent understanding of what was popular with kids.
Plus it creates that nostalgia cycle that makes sense. Like they've got that kind of distance from the point of nostalgia, shall we say, that we at the moment are kind of, our kind of age group and older and even a little bit younger a kind of, you know, we're coming to the end of what we can actually dredge up from back then now. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I feel like yeah, that kind of site, that kind of like, that's shifting a little bit to like the 90s and then the early 2000s. And so, yeah, I get what you're saying there. And I think there is an element of refreshing the age of the company too.
Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, they get you whenever you're cheapest right out of college. You hit that, you finally have money, so you're in the nostalgia cycle. And then a bunch of people maybe have kids, and so they're in touch with what kids like because they've just had some. And then they're done with you.
Yeah. Hearing in the comments, Mr. Cheeseburger says Google laid off 12,000 people. Wow, that's a lot. I mean, I have seen outrage at Google and Amazon and so on and so forth. I've seen that. The only reason there's outrage with this, Mr. Cheeseburger, is because we're so close to it. We're not necessarily reporting on what Google do or what Amazon do. The only thing that Amazon do that obviously relates to what we do on this channel, and I know you're not probably saying where's our outrage for that. I mean, there's only so much outrage to go around as an individual. But yeah, like I feel like in terms of what we do and what we report on, it's going to be obviously what's related to G.I. Joe, isn't it? And this is, like I said, the only thing Amazon is connected to are like Amazon exclusives and things like that. But it's not really something that we feel is a relatable thing to discuss for the channel, if you know what I mean. But yeah, there's a lot of layoffs all the time. Big companies are doing it. It's a technique, it's a tactic, and it's something that, somehow. It's actually, I was having a conversation the other day, and this actually made me. I'd never really thought about this before, but it's one of those things where I think I read it actually in one of the articles where it said that Mattel, when Hasbro's shares go up, Mattel's go up, and when Hasbro's go down, Mattel's go down. So it's like, it's one of those things where if you're a bigger kind of toy company, it's almost like it's really important for your competitors to be doing well as you, in terms of the share market kind of price and all that kind of stuff. So I found that quite interesting because I'd never thought about that before, but apparently that is quite a trend. With the share prices and things like that, they often kind of follow each other in the market, which I thought would, again, I know nothing of the crunch, if anyone knows that reference. I know nothing of that kind of stuff like in detail, but having read that, I was like, wow, that's something I've never really considered before. It's interesting that Mattel or both of them probably need each other to do well. And I suppose, having that huge Barbie movie for Mattel, you'd thought would have actually been, a good thing for Hasbro too, but maybe not, maybe it doesn't work in that way around. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that probably a lot of that has more to do with people using the other company to gauge the health of the market for what business they are in. I don't know. It's not like Hasbro doesn't have a diverse number of toys and entertainment things.
Yeah, true.
True. But I don't know. Maybe some of the stuff that they were getting into just hasn't worked out. Obviously, some of the stuff that they sold off, it felt like they really invested a lot to get Peppa Pig.
They invested a lot to get all of that, and I don't see. I'm pretty sure they didn't make anything close to what, I mean, that was a weird. In all honesty, like, I am in no place to judge. It's not like I'm a super successful businessman or anything like that. But looking from the outside, looking in, some of the decisions that the new CEO Chris Cox has made, obviously he's, at the end of the day, he's responsible for all of it because he's the be all and end all of it. So he's going to be the one that gets the focus here. And obviously there's obviously details that, that we aren't aware of. Certain things may happen, or certain things might be other people's fault. And obviously as a CEO, you then have to take responsibility for that. But I'm not solely putting the blame on him. What I'm going to say though, is that it feels like Hasbro hasn't been making very good decisions since Brian Goldner. And I'm not saying Brian Goldner was making great decisions every single day. Rest in peace, of course. But like, what I mean is, I think he wanted it to be an entertainment company. That seems to have changed. And that isn't something you can just switch on and off. You can't
No.
just like, well, we're going to be a different company now. There has to be like a whole, like almost like culture that gets bought into by the consumer. That sounds gross, I know, but that is what actually has to happen. And that takes time. It takes time to kind of like to move giant companies like Hasbro and change directions and stuff. But if you look at like the Dungeons and Dragons decision, which had a massive like, you know, negative effect on Hasbro.
Yeah.
The way that was responded to, well, I've never seen anything like that, really. Like I've seen the community react in ridiculous ways, but I've never seen like the whole community be like, no, that's not what we want. That's wrong. That's bad. And then, you know, lo and behold, they went back on it. So, you know, like that was an interesting and weird kind of like situation, considering he came from that background. Like he came from success in that field to then do that, to make that decision with Dungeons and Dragons, and Magic the Gathering. Really, I don't know. That was a really weird kind of idea, and then to go back on it and go back. I'm not sure how. And again, these are difficult decisions. It's not like you make a decision and you know you just got to stick with it. Sometimes you do have to go back on it because it's such a bad, you know, choice. But it just seems like that was not a good start. And that was kind of right towards the beginning of him taking over, I believe. There was also, obviously, in that time period, we've had multiple layoffs. And there's been other things that have happened that have made you kind of go, huh? The kind of flip-flop between plastic-free, you know, packaging and stuff like that. Like, what was that? Because that felt like nobody could make a decision. Do you know what I mean? That felt like it was just, oh yeah, we'll do this, but then there's this, but then okay, we'll go back on that, and now we're here, and we've had what 4 different types of packaging in a year from Classified on its own.
Yeah, and I have to wonder how the setup in the factory is, like the equipment that they used to make some of that stuff and to do quality control, because it's not just a matter of putting the figures in the package. Like I believe that they actually have like a visual system, like in a computer that checks to make sure that all the parts are in there while they're popped into that plastic tray. Like the plastic tray with like the figure and all the pieces will go past a camera and be like, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And then it'll move on. And
is it like one of those airport scanners kind of thing?
No, I think it's just like a webcam almost.
Oh, okay.
Like just a camera that looks at it and makes sure that all the parts are in there and says, you know, go ahead. And whenever you get rid of the plastic packaging, you know, that makes major changes to the production process. So like for them to take, you know, that other company that's a partner of theirs, I don't believe that they own those facilities.
Yeah.
And
it's always you're right. It's always a partnership situation with a separate factory kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And to have them be such a major buyer from that factory, you pretty much are making, like, without the production of Hasbro stuff, you know, that's going to be a huge amount of business for that company. They probably have factories that are dedicated to almost, you know, just Hasbro, or across several of them, multiple things. It would just be a lot of stuff to completely change out, and then to have Hasbro say, hey, no, you know what, just to go ahead and do it the way it was before. You know, did you get rid of equipment and have to reinstall stuff? It's just a lot of back and forth and expense in changing the setup, changing the training of the people who are working there.
That's so true.
Yeah.
There's so many little, like, yeah, you're right, so many little kind of details with just making one simple change to a product that you've had running for a year. That's so true. There's another thing as well that kind of dawned on me with the factory stuff. Obviously, this is more like specific to G.I. Joe Classified, but obviously we had that kind of period where they were taken out of a main factory, put into a different factory, and I think starting lineup was put into the main factory. And I mean, starting lineup was a huge failure. Like that just disappeared. Selfie series was a huge failure. That is, you know, that's kind of crashed and burned a little bit. Or maybe they're coming back with something, you know, better. Who knows? But at the same time, it didn't do what they wanted it to do, nowhere near. And yeah, so those two were like big hits straight off the bat. And you're talking like, yeah, it's kind of like to a degree, it's probably a drop in the bucket to Hasbro usually, but maybe not at the moment. Maybe currently in the situation we're in with like, you know, the kind of sales not being very great and all that kind of stuff. Maybe that was enough to be like, that's actually a significant kick in the nuts. So like there was that, and then obviously that led to classified figures being like, you know, like you say, having QC issues, having situations where you were getting like a change of like, you know, let's talk about the gummy weapons, for example. Those weapons like kept coming out, and it's just like, well, they're aware of it and they've requested changes, and it's not happening. So it's like there's clearly like, you know, issues there at that level with getting that information to and from the factory they're working with. So then, well, and then actually there's another thing, isn't there? There's another thing with Hasbro. Obviously, two of their biggest kind of like properties that they're kind of like, you know, that they not own themselves, but that they work with companies on, are Marvel and Star Wars. And there's been a definite kind of drop off in terms of what Star Wars and Marvel are producing in terms of the entertainment. In like, not just my opinion, but just in that's been the case. Like the numbers have dropped. You know, people aren't going to see the films. They're not kind of necessarily streaming it in the same amounts of, you know, a volume either. They're not as successful, and therefore you're not getting that kind of like, you know, that turnaround of like product that they would kind of, you know, for a while Marvel Legends was kicking A and taking names, and it was just like churning stuff out on a weekly basis. I know they just did a drop. Was it yesterday or the day before? There's been a recent kind of Marvel kind of like thing, I think, with the X-Men cartoon around the corner.
Yeah.
So like, you know, that makes sense, right? Do you know what I mean? Like to be dropping that, but at the same time, it's not, you know, they're not hitting the numbers they used to do. And Star Wars is a similar boat. Like, you know, the TV shows, the occasional kind of hit, but then there's like a big miss or whatever. And then, you know, it's like, I can definitely see that's affecting them as well in terms of Marvel and Star Wars.
Yeah, episode 8, I think, was the turning point for Star Wars. It really was. That was when I started, like, I can still go buy locally. I can still go buy episode 8 figures off the pegs.
Yeah.
I mean, how long ago did The Last Jedi come out? I'm not talking about Rise of Skywalker. I'm talking about episode 8. Like Benicio del Toro, I saw a whole peg of them within the last week.
I don't even know what year that was. I don't know what the years mean. After 2000, forget it. I don't know what years are.
Timing is even just weird about things. Like the X-Men figures, that show's not out yet, and the figures went on clearance. There's just it seems to me like over time, production runs of a single figure would be larger, and the fan base and kids were kind of expected to be paying attention to that. You know, this is what we are doing with G.I. Joe. This year we are going with, it's going to be a 4-inch line. That is what G.I. Joe is. That's G.I. Joe's identity. And then over time, it's just like, as the number of buyers probably is getting smaller, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
On some of that stuff, they're trying to differentiate. You know, how do you get to 100,000 sales? Well, if the number of buyers is getting lower, give them more to buy. You know, so instead of selling one character at 100,000 units, maybe you sell 10 characters at 10,000 units each. So it feels like by doing that, they're kind of making the collectors themselves a little more focused on different things than each other. And now they're going to have to kind of cater to those desires. And I think that, like, where do you go from there? You know, when our sales start to drop, how do you handle that? I really don't know. They're in a tough position. They really are.
I would say as well, like my kind of, I suppose most of the outrage for me is, and it's not really like, you know, it's just upsetting, but most of that kind of like feeling comes from the fact that it's so close to the holiday period, right? Like I don't see why it has to happen like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
at least do it 2 months beforehand, or like even afterwards. It would suck, but at least you're not like having that hanging over people over the holiday period. That sucks, and it really does like ruin. I mean, it ruins anyone's day anyway, doesn't it? Let's face it, it's going to ruin your day if you're made redundant.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you could be in a better position. And like, I don't know, it just seems like the worst timing, and the serious lack of real awareness to do something like this, no matter what the situation may be. But I don't know. There you go. So I think we've covered that in pretty good detail there, Pat.
We have, yes.
Big, obviously, massive shout out to everyone affected, and also, you know, our condolences to you guys. I mean, it sucks to lose your job, especially around this time. And I just, you know, like, Hasbro isn't the be all and end all of life. I want that to be kind of like clear for a lot of people. It's not like you don't go there and it's like, you know, this is it. I've reached the pinnacle. There are other places you can go, and you never know. It could be even better for you in the long run. So yeah, hopefully everyone gets sorted out in the new year. But my goodness, what a crap situation. The other thing as well that I was going to say, there was one other thing. That was the other thing during the year, prices going up as well. There was we discussed earlier in the year, the prices kind of going up. But like, I will say, I've been really impressed with how Classified have been able to stay at that $24.99 price point for the single figures. After it jumped, I think a lot of people were expecting it to jump again and again and again and again and again. And it still might do next year. You never know. We might be having this conversation in January or February that the prices are going up again. But at the moment, I've been really impressed with how they've managed, you know, to deal with that and keep it. And yes, they've added new price points. It's very difficult to be a completist because there's so much product. But I guess, you know, that's what you got to do in order to keep other, you know, people able to kind of afford things. I don't know. It's a weird balance.
I think that's where so many items is also working against them, because like you said just now, it's very difficult to be a completist because there are so many items. So for me, would I rather go buy, you know, a brand new figure at $25, or would I rather go buy, you know, 3 or 4 of them at Ross for $25? Because that's part of their problem, is that so much of this stuff that is flooding the market is finally pushing through. And I already know I can't afford every G.I. Joe.
Yeah.
So why would I buy one when I can buy 3?
Totally. And that's a byproduct of this decision to try and get as much out, you know, to get ahead of the line plan and everything, which again, I don't know what would have, I just don't know what the answer is. Probably I would have just kept going with how they were doing it. Do you know what I mean? Like steady stream, but not like crushing everything into a short amount of time. It just,
I think that what Emily has said is a good outlook, that things are going to space out a little bit and there will be fewer of them. I think that if things are not coming through, you know, it often feels like that episode of I Love Lucy. That's how I've pictured many of us. Like the chocolate's just coming down and we're all trying to eat it as fast as possible. You know what I mean? And it's just, it's just not, we're not going to get there. So like, if it's slowing down, I may actually have the opportunity to savor some of these reveals and releases and be more interested in buying them, you know, not being a completist, but getting close to it, because I've already been forced out of being a completist. And I don't have a ton of motivation to go back and buy some of those figures that were duds. So, you know, I'm still going to be picking and choosing until I get to that point where, for whatever reason, I do have one of each. I'm, you know, going to be a little more choosy, but I think at a slower rate, I will be buying a larger number, or larger percentage, I should say, of what is coming out.
I'll be picky and you can be choosy, and then we can.
Okay, that's our code names.
Picky and choosy.
Picky and choosy. In the target listings, you know they're making up.
We're going to be 80th anniversary figures, aren't we? That's what we'll be, picky and choosy. Amazing stuff. And again, crap news, horrible news to start off with. It doesn't get much better today, but we'll keep going. And again, shout out to everyone that lost their jobs. It sucks. It's awful. Right before Christmas, man. Ugh. And of course, to Michael Kelly. I know Diana was talking about him in the comments just then. Really sad to see him go. Actually, like Diana's true with what she's saying. Like, he was really hardworking, really awesome dude, and he was doing a great job as well. So it's crap. Anyway, next up we have Super 7 fails to fund news. Unfortunately, the Cobra mothership crashed and burned and didn't make the initial funding goal of 4K in time, so we won't be getting the epic vehicle playset, but not all is lost. We spoke to Brian last week on the show and he was still very positive regarding the newly announced O-ring line, and I would expect we will see the Viper Gunner and Viper Gunner Officer in the future, despite being locked behind the campaign. It will be interesting to see what the O-ring line will look like, but we will have to wait until next fall to find out. Yes, we shall. So it's not all doom and gloom, even though it is a bit doom and gloom. I mean, like, I know you're quite happy, Pat, that the O-ring is coming back, and from what Brian was said in the interview, there's a lot of kind of positive elements there. But first of all, before we get into that, let's talk mothership. Surprised?
No. I mean, we've been talking about this for a while, that the rate that the thing was selling at was just not looking good. And it is a shame, but I think that there's so many factors that came into play here that I don't think anyone thinks that a lack of effort or creativity from Super 7 was the reason why it didn't fund.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It was because of, the price and where we are right now. We talked about how many layoffs. I think that's kind of an economic situation for many people.
Oh, totally. I mean, right now, you and I have talked about it quite often about, like, having to be careful with all of this stuff now, like, be very kind of like thoughtful about what we're actually spending our money on. It's totally true. Like, everyone's in the similar boat.
Yeah. And then space and other large items, the fact that this was a crowdfund is no longer a unique thing. There's many crowdfunds running at all times now. And, even just as toy collectors, there's usually some toy crowdfund happening at the moment. So it doesn't make all eyes go on this. It's not really driving those sales to have that. So I'm still very eager for what they have in store for us. I think that really we only got a tiny peek at what kind of plans they have for O-ring stuff. And I'm still in that mode where I'm cautiously optimistic. It's possible that the look of the O-rings really won't be my cup of tea, but man, I really want them to be successful, and I want them to find O-ring to be such a great thing that they decide to do it with other brands, and that this is just, exactly what they need for them to start. I hope that the O-ring G.I. Joes will make up for them what they invested in the efforts here, because this is a bad sunk cost for them development wise.
Definitely. I've got to say that I think, when we were messaging recently and you kept saying, stop saying things about the O-ring line because you're getting my hopes up.
Yeah,
I was saying things like, Pat, imagine if they did a Pythona figure. Pat, imagine if they do this figure. Pat, imagine if they do Ninja Commandos. And you're just like, stop doing this to me.
Yeah, I sent you the meme of Hawkeye from Endgame that said, "Don't give me hope."
Oh, I like torturing you in that way. Mr. Cheeseburger has asked, Pat, what price point are you willing to pay for O-ring figures?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't want it going crazy, but like Brian said last time, they're going to try to keep it within the price of the reaction figures. I'm going to have a weird answer for you. because depending on the execution and the idea, probably anywhere from $10 to $30.
So how 10 to what? To what?
10 to 30.
Oh, right. Okay, that's a big range.
It is a big range because in my mind, if you made absolutely like the perfect figure of like Pythona or one of the ones that I've been waiting forever for. Obviously, I have a great Pythona figure in 4-inch form. That's not O-ring Pythona, you know.
Well,
and
yeah.
Things like Tiger Force Torpedo or you know, there's just a lot of
Sabertooth.
Yeah, exactly. Some of those ones, if I look at that figure and I'm like, there is absolutely nothing on this that I could possibly want different.
Recondo Redeco.
What?
Recondo Redeco.
Yeah, come on. Exactly. There's just a bunch of them that I would love to have. And a lot of those really are ones that they don't have to sculpt. They just use the old figure and make it new. But we also saw how that didn't quite work out for the retro stuff that Hasbro did.
Yeah.
And those are not $30 figures to me, you know, for the quality of them. So that knocks it down. Now, at that $10 level, like I'll usually buy reaction figures at about $5 if they're ones that I just didn't want to buy at a higher price, even now. Yes, Dr. Venom, John Cremian says, give us a Dr. Venom. If there's a Dr. Venom that looked like he belonged in that 1983-84 line, and he was just like absolutely perfect and everything I wanted, yeah, that's a $30 figure. I'm fine with that. But, you know, if he's got weird proportions, if he doesn't quite fit in, it might be a $10 figure if it's fitted very well.
Ryan says O-ring Wolf Spider. I like where you're going with this, Ryan. Like kind of, you know, like Dawn Moreno, Helix,
Wolf
Spider, Shooter. These would be really good O-ring figures, like going like almost like we've seen Darth Maul recently in the retro line, Pat. No, it's not the same thing, but it's like it's 5-point of articulation, but it's like going back and doing a figure from the future going into the retro sort of thing.
Yeah, and Darth Maul's actually, I'm pretty sure I posted, like, hey, I think it'd be neat if they did a vintage style Darth Maul. I think I posted something like that, like, prior to Super 7 announcing that Alien was coming back as a reaction line so long ago. So I've been waiting on that figure for a long time. But the names that you just mentioned are good points in my head, because I would love it, for example, if we got Shooter as a straight arm figure,
right?
You know,
OG-13.
A perfectly 1982 style Shooter. I think that would be awesome. I know a lot of people wouldn't want that, so it's not what I expect them to do. But yeah, 1983, I do think that they could hit Shooter in that 1983 style, and that would be appropriate.
Adam S says Bongo the Balloon Bear. These are nice. These are good shots because these are all kind of things. Past the Progress is White Clown. These are all things that I think are in Super 7's wheelhouse 100%. Before I start getting everyone's options coming up on screen, Pastor Pierogi has a point that I want to talk about quickly here. Do any old Hasbro molds still exist is the first question. And would Super 7 be able to use them? I can answer that question very, very easily. No. So unfortunately, there was a point in Hasbro's recent history where a lot of the original molds were going to be were basically in storage, and the person in charge of said storage basically had them destroyed, and that person does not work in that particular job anymore. I'm not sure if they were part of a layoff structure or if it was just straight away, but it feels like it might have been quite soon after that happened. So none of the original molds, I don't think anything of the original molds, other than maybe the odd one here or there, still exists. I think whatever they had left, we saw in the kind of retro modern 4-inch line, Pat.
I think the last time we saw O-ring molds being made from the original tooling was 2009.
Yeah.
Is the last time I want to say. And the weird thing about that is that those hit after the story of that person going through and throwing away multiple molds. But that was like 9 figures, and at the time, like I had heard that those were pretty much worn out, and that
Yeah,
they
there's
were
the
only doing
degradation as well, isn't there, that goes on with
yeah,
using these tools. You can only get a
yeah.
certain amount of runs with the tooling, honestly.
Right. I think that any of the ones that, if they existed in 2000, I think that 2009 may have been like the last effort to use anything. And even if they were permitted to and had them right in front of themselves, or like, okay, we could just do this with a green light, you may not want to, because can you advertise, can you go to your buyers, like your Walmarts and Targets, and say, we're going to make this thing, and rely upon tooling that's that old and that out of shape in order to get the job done?
No.
Probably not. And then even if it did, like the sculpt of everything would be soft. I think that that's unfortunately not going to happen, even if there was a single one available to them.
Yeah. Leon says General Flag and not that Headman repaint.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. That'd be kind of cool.
General Flag comic and General Flag Sunbow.
Yeah, definitely. Cold Slither's another good shout from Leon there.
It's Cold Slither for sure.
Yeah, that'd be an exclusive. Got to be, hasn't it? That's got to be up there. Satin's Band, all that kind of jazz, big time.
Yeah.
Mark says, well, Dawn is from the comics, so should be in their remit. Honestly, Mark, I think everything is. I think literally everything's in their remit now. Like, what was it? 80s animation. Deke. And so Sunbow, Deke, comics, and figures.
Yeah.
So that's everything pretty much, isn't it? And you know them. That's where they'll start, but they will dip into stuff left, right, and bloody center. They will.
Yeah, I loved your interview, by the way, with Brian. That was really good.
Thank you. That's the first episode you've ever watched, I think, of the show. Pat doesn't watch any of the show. He hates it all. He doesn't even want to be on the show.
I don't watch it.
Pat has literally got he's got it in his contract that he doesn't have to. Doesn't have to like me. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to like the show. He doesn't have to talk good about. No, I'm kidding. So it looks. Yeah. So basically, this is all good stuff. Thank you for all the comments here, guys. This is brilliant. Fumbles. Brilliant. Fumbles and what was is Fumbles the who's the shipwreck character? That isn't Fumbles, is it?
No.
But isn't it in the same thing?
Fumbles is Robot Chicken, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Because that wasn't that the what was it? What were they called?
I don't remember. I've only seen people reference that. I don't know if I've actually seen all of the Robot Chicken G.I. Joe stuff.
Yeah, it's like that kind of like wetsuit shipwreck character, and I always forget what he's called. That's I've lost that.
Are you thinking of Stinky Diver from
yes, that's what I'm thinking of.
That's from Nickelodeon.
Yes, that's what I was getting confused with. So Fumbles is from Robot Chicken, and Stinky Diver is from Nickelodeon. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Jamie Lynn, as well. Thank you. The 924 shipwreck. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. So okay, O-ring. I think it's going to be pretty interesting. I think there's going to be some really interesting, like, deep cuts in there, as he mentioned. I don't think it's going to be standard issue, Mogad issue. I think it's going to be like we're going to get some cool stuff in that line.
I think that he has me. I think this is going to be my main new retail line. Is going to be the Super 7 O-ring stuff. I can't wait to click pre-order. I really can't.
I was surprised that he even said that they're going to keep doing reaction as well. He says not as in the same volume, but they're going to kept doing it as well. So that came out of his mouth.
Yeah, there's some of them that I mean, it almost doesn't surprise me. Like sets like this one.
Yeah.
Stuff like this, where they're a little bit silly. Maybe they'd make more sense to have them be a reaction figure than to be an O-ring figure.
Yes.
I mean, I almost would love everything as O-ring still. But we'll see what happens. I don't know what they have in mind for reaction.
Imagine if they redid everything they've done in reaction for the O-ring line is that would be crazy. I mean, I'd like to see Raven. I'd like to see
me too.
Sabretooth, who's coming soon, by the way. We know the leak listings of that, obviously. I'd like to see Tiger Force Snake Eyes, Tiger Force Scarlet, the Python Patrol guys. I'd like to see those kind of done as well, to kind of like go along with your current, they probably wouldn't fit, but you know what I'm saying. The other thing I would say, Pat, is there's going to be so many random things they're going to throw in here that whether or not they're going like identical to the style would probably still fit in because they're so different proportionally. Do you know what I mean? Like Bongo the Balloon Bear, for example, like the Fatal Fluffies, because it's not like a situation where you have to, make an exact O-ring figure of that proportion. A Fatal Fluffy is going to be bigger and it's going to be tiny. So you can get away with that, like working with your O-ring line, whether it is the exact way it would have been made back then or not, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I almost think that it'd be appropriate to make a Fatal Fluffy as a reaction figure rather than an O-ring. Not that I'm telling them to do that.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point.
A Fatal Fluffy, I've always imagined more in the style of the Mega Monsters, which are more reaction than they are O-ring.
So true. 100%. That's a really good point, actually. And like obviously the mini Fatal Fluffy, they could do a couple of slightly different ones, but they would effectively just be little, statues because they'd be so small. And then the bigger guys, like you say, they could just do them like, basic shoulder articulation, hip articulation, maybe knees. But that you wouldn't really need to go crazy with that. Okay, cool. Also, before we move on, Adam Riches revealed that he did the artwork for the Viper Gunner, which is really cool. So as far as I'm aware, this was painted in gouache. Is that correct, Pat?
Yeah, painted. I think he said he painted it in gouache. So it was done just through the same process as the vintage figures. And I think that shows.
Oh, big time. Big time. It's definitely got that vintage vibe. Adam he's always spot on with his work. I mean, he's got like over 50 card backs to his name in the G.I. Joe kind of line, which I think I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that is the most. Although Jason Edmiston might have overtaken him, because Adam, I think at one point had the most card backs with it for Hasbro G.I. Joe. Adam does have that record, I think, but with Jason Edmiston, who's done the Super 7 reaction card backs, they're like 70-something figures out.
So how many does Garrido have? Hector Garrido?
Garrido, I don't think he has as many as people think. But I think Adam overtook him at some point during his because obviously you've got Earl Norham in there, you've got Doug Hart, you've got
and at a certain point it was mostly Doug Hart.
And Doug did really good artwork as well. He goes under the radar, man. Like I go on a lot about Earl Norham and how much I love his like Road Pig, his Storm Shadow, his version 2 Storm Shadow, Hydro Viper, and so on and so forth. I love those particular pieces of artwork, but some of the stuff Doug did is gorgeous. And I'm Garrido too, man. Yeah, Garrido shot first, Leon. You're right. Garrido is. Let's face it. If we're talking, it's kind of like who's the best, LeBron or Jordan. Garrido is going to be Michael Jordan. There's no there's no messing with that. He basically won more championships in a shorter period of time.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. That is a really funny analogy. But who would I think? Like, should we say Adam's Covey? Can Adam be Covey? He'd probably hate that. Adam, who do you want to be? Let us know who you want to be. He's a Miami fan, so it's going to have to be like Wade or Bosch or maybe Shaq or LeBron. LeBron played for the Heat. Pat has I've lost Pat. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't really know what you're talking about so much anymore.
I'm just saying
Shaq
names
is
now.
And who LeBron is.
I lost
you. Just named a bunch of people that I don't know.
Amazing. Anyway, gorgeous artwork, and hopefully we do get to see this, on like a single card or something at some point, because I think it's a bit of a waste if not. But I'm glad that it exists, this artwork, and hopefully, like I said, we can see it on some sort of card art in the future. Do you see them doing this one at some point, and maybe the grey one?
Maybe. I think it sets a dangerous precedent to just go ahead and release parts of a crowdfund without the crowdfund portion of it. Hey, if it doesn't fund, we're going to give it to you anyway. That's a really dangerous thing to get into. But, you know, maybe they could change it up a little bit, or maybe they will just sell it, because the plan was to sell the figures, I think, separately. If you...
Yeah, there was like 5 packs, weren't there?
Yeah,
as well.
I mean,
so the actual set came with the figures, and there were going to be the additional, you know, 5 packs that you could purchase on top.
Yeah, so, but we kind of got into this discussion before. If the thing had funded, would you have been able to go in and buy the figures but not the ship?
I don't think so, because I spoke to Brian about this, and he said that it would only be for people that backed the campaign. So you're technically having to do so in order to get those 5 packs, if that makes sense. Just because it unlocks doesn't mean that those figures become, like, you know, available just on their own, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So it was only going to be supplementary for the...
Yeah, the wording on the website didn't indicate that.
That's the problem, man. There's been a lot of this. We've had discussions on loads of things in the past. Where I've had to then go back and ask, like, Lenny or Emily or whoever it may be, or, you know, or Brian in this case, for like confirmation. Because you're right, we're there sitting there kind of going, you know, we're fairly intelligent people. I can read at least sometimes, and yeah, just hilarious, I guess. But yeah, we like the fact that we have to kind of do that is a little bit like, clearly there's an issue there. Do you know what I mean? That might need a bit of tightening up in copy. And some of the stuff that gets out, like, if you remember this, Zartan's color change feature that never happened on the first Zartan. Do you remember that? Classified Zartan. Oh, actually, this happened.
Color change feature that didn't happen on the Super 7 figure.
Both times, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was like
both times.
It was the classified first version of Zartan had the copy saying that he changed color, and everyone was freaking out. And Lenny was like, "Oh, for goodness sake," because he knew that they were developing that for the other figure, and obviously things had been, wires had got crossed and copy had been made, and it was too late at that point. But they had to then kind of palm that off at the time, saying, "Oh, it was an accident. They were using the old copy and all this kind of stuff." And it's like, and then a few months later, we get color change Zartan. Interesting. And this, the same with Super 7, Pat. You're right. We had the same problem with Zartan then, didn't we?
Yeah.
Crazy pants.
Yeah.
Sherlock has asked me, how are Chris and Pat today?
I'm a little bit tired. Doing okay.
Pat's sleeping, and I'm trying to bring the energy, but it's hard because we've just been talking about layoffs for half an hour, the kind of state of, you know, collecting. Then we talked about a failed Super 7 crowdfunding campaign. I think we need to move on, mate, and we need to start talking about stuff that's going to get us energized.
Is there something positive to talk about next?
Let's do positive. There is something positive to talk about next. I think you all know it's Merry H.I.S.S and a Happy New Listings.
His tanks are arriving on doorsteps across the country, and most people seem very happy about it. Possibly one of the most eagerly anticipated HasLabs so far, and the team has done a wonderful job in making those high expectations a reality for a lot of Joe fans out there. As well as that, we revealed a few more characters for those recently leaked classified listings. Iron Grenadier Bat is Judy, one of the 4 figures in the standard release wave alongside Alpine and the Iron Grenadier. Nemesis Immortal is Atlas DLX, which tells us that he will be a deluxe figure, so expect him to be on the large side and have those massive wings as well. And Starduster is Daphne DLX, which has us wondering just what he will come with. In the past, has been used for a figure with a vehicle, see SMS with Techno Viper, and Cobra Ferret with Ferret Scout, but both of those also had the VEH designation. This points towards something significant but not technically a vehicle, so he could come with the jump pad, but until we get more info on that, we will have to wait and see.
Yes, so let's talk his tanks first. Have you had yours come yet, mate?
It has arrived at my parents' house.
Sweet.
So I need to go get it.
Here's a picture of mine.
I haven't opened it yet, obviously. So I'm just happy it's there. I'm just like, I'm at that moment now, okay, right, I can just relax now and stop checking the FedEx app every 25 seconds. Oh my God. It was worse when people are like, oh, it's turning up. Oh, I've got it. Oh, I've opened it. Oh, here's a video. Oh, this. And I'm just be like, son of a, where's mine? It's first, I'm not sure about what your tracking said, but mine first said Thursday, right? Which was yesterday. Then it changed to Tuesday. And I was like, oh, it's coming early. And then I got pending for 2 days. And I was just like, what? When is, and I kept refreshing it, nothing. And then out of the blue, it just says Thursday, this time period, and boom, it was there. And I was so happy. So I haven't opened it yet. I will be doing so. And what I'll probably do is do some sort of really awkward unboxing that no one really cares about, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then really enjoy it and have some fun with it. Because as you can see, Phoebe likes it. Can you see Phoebe there, Pat?
Yeah, I enjoyed the picture of Phoebe. Just the casual reaching in, sniffing the box, making sure the box checks out, and is allowed in the house.
Phoebe is like the video that checks to make sure all of the parts are in the box, like on the factory. She checks. She's just checking. She's just saying, "Yep, his gunner is in. The female gunner's in there. His driver's in there. Tactician. Yep, I can definitely smell the tactician. No retro Cobra Commander. What? You better be lying, Phoebes. You better be lying. Anyway, we'll bust that bad boy out and have a look at some point. Probably this weekend. Just don't pressure me. It'll happen." Anyway, yes, are you going to be busting yours out, mate? I guess. Are you going to be enjoying it to its fullest, or are you just not going to get the opportunity or time ever?
That's such a big box that I will probably stare at it and be like, I know that this is going to be a time investment if I open it, and I will want to get a lot of life things done before I indulge myself that way.
Sign a new life insurance plan.
I just have so much work. I cannot picture myself opening this in the next month or two, to be honest. I mean, I'll probably look at it and be like, yay, I opened it. But other than that, digging through it, I just don't know where I'll have time.
I agree with Jamie Lynn on this one. Thank you, mate. Yeah, definitely. We need more Phoebes. You might hear her bark in a little while. She's been quiet for a little while, but she's in the background. So yeah, cannot wait. I'm gonna maybe I could do some sort of Christmas special unboxing. That makes sense. Let's make it special. Let's throw some different graphics on it. Brian, you've got some work to do. Just kidding. Anyway, that's awesome. So thanks Hasbro for that beauty. And we can't really talk more on it other than to say they're arriving, people. So keep an eye out. The next up then, and this is Pat hates this stuff. I know you do, mate.
I thought that it was funny how you're like, yeah, we have good news up next. Here's some code names.
Well, what I can at least say with this is that it gives us more information about certain things. But as obviously Pat does hate this is probably going to go down as the worst episode ever for him in terms of positive. This has been the most negative episode, hasn't it? Really,
it kind of has. Yeah, there's not been a ton of positive.
I've tried
some negative packed in every news story.
It just is, isn't it? I mean, that's what this week has been, and at least we've got Christmas to look forward to. See our families. You're working, so once again, that doesn't really work for you, does it? Either. Yeah, worst day ever for Pat, unfortunately. Sorry, guys. But anyway, let's talk listings. Now, we know this at the moment, what you're seeing on screen. There's a few other things that we know in here, but we can't say yet, so we'll just have to wait for name-only reveals and so on and so forth. But we do know that Alpine, Iron Grenadiers, and the Iron Grenadier Bat are going to be 3 of a 4-figure standard wave, which looks to be what their normal standard situation is going forward. I have been trying to get interviews set up with BMAC and Emily and Lenny, but the way things are going, I don't know when I can actually get them done now, because we're going to be going to see family over the Christmas period and New Year's, so it's going to be difficult to kind of squeeze these in. I will try to get them done before we go, and I will try to get some done while I'm there, but it's not going to be easy. Plus, they're going to be on holiday as well, and they're going to be want to chill. They're going to want to see family and all that kind of stuff. But I will definitely keep trying. Now, obviously, I think the layoffs had a huge effect on planning for that specific outcome with Emily, Lenny, BMAC, etc. They're still there, so that's good. And I believe my representative for Hasbro is still there, so that's all good. So hopefully it will go through. Now, the other thing I will say about that is that, remember when I told you I did an interview with Kerry Vandenberg from Maple Powered Games, Pat?
Yeah.
Video games guy. I have to do a few edits on that video. Unfortunately, we didn't find out until yesterday because obviously the layoffs have caused a huge issue with their contacts at Hasbro. So that, you know, people are like having to hand things off to other people, and obviously it's all a mess at the moment. So thankfully we only found out that yesterday. I will try and get that video up as soon as I can, but it's going to take some time. Just want to lay that out there for everybody. So that's that. Now, coming back to listings, 4-figure waves, that looks to be what's going to be happening going forward, because we've had the Big Boa Airborne Quick Kick Techno Viper thing very recently. There was no other 5th figure in that group. And every other like block of figures that we know are coming, it's all been in 4s. So that's kind of interesting. Obviously, all that's happening there is they're taking one figure out of the wave, and and because they've got so many other price points in there. So it makes sense to do that. Like, you've got a figure and pet almost in every single blooming wave now. You've got figures and vehicles coming out left, right, and center. So it kind of makes sense that, you know, they switch to 4. I will get the confirmation of that when I interview them, but at the moment, it's really just what we're seeing on the surface. So yeah, there's one other figure for the Alpine Iron Grenadier Bat and Iron Grenadiers. We do know what it is, but we can't say, and we'll have to wait for any, you know, official reveals before we can. But what do you think of this as a little kind of 4-figure wave, Pat? Obviously, we'll stick with the 3 that we can talk about, but this is as a grouping.
Well, I'm curious to see what gear Alpine is going to come with. He'd better come with his backpack.
I can't see them not doing that's got to happen, hasn't it?
Yeah, it feels like it really has to. I'm imagining him coming with a pouch for like maybe some chalk or something like that, like one of those things that slings over. I don't know why I picture that. I think mountain climbing has become more detailed as far as the general population's exposure and understanding of it, with movies like Free Solo and the Dawn Wall.
Oh my god, Free Solo blew my mind.
Yeah, I watched the Dawn Wall first, and that blew my mind. And then Free Solo was just like, okay, this guy's an extra level of crazy.
Oh yeah, yes, I've seen both of those actually. I think at the same time. I think we watched them back to back, Kate and I.
Yeah,
they were really good documentaries.
I was sitting there sweating watching some of it.
Oh geez, it's heart wrenching. And name drop, classified heart wrenching. What I would say as well is that whole story where they were in, like, was it Afghanistan or somewhere, and they were mountain climbing in that area, and they were kind of taken hostage. Yeah. And to escape, he pushed one of them off the cliff, thought he'd killed the guy for years, and then it turned out that he didn't die.
Yeah.
How crazy, man, was that?
Yeah, there's just a lot. Those documentaries are worth watching. They're worth watching.
Not now I've spoiled it. I just realized that was a major spoiler. But anyway. Thank you, Black Genghis. Appreciate that, buddy. Happy holidays, everybody. Keep up the amazing work, Chris. Not you, Pat. Full force. Thank you, Black Genghis. Appreciate that. And I appreciate you really highlighting my impact with the full force and not Pat's. Just kidding.
I just show up.
Yeah. What do you do? Nothing.
Nothing.
No, thank you, bud. That's awesome. Really appreciate it, mate. And yeah, so okay, Alpine, good shout. Backpack needs to have it. I would say removable hat, obviously. Goggles have got to be removable too. Yeah. Do you think? Yeah. Secondary rope.
Yes, and much more than what Wolf Spider came with.
Yes. Well, I'm thinking they're going to do something like Shipwreck and have a molded rope around him is what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I think so too.
So, and I think maybe either they do a secondary like belly jacket is what I'm describing it as, because it doesn't go all the way down, but a secondary belly jacket that maybe has a separate rope secondary, because they could fuse them together, but they did that with I want to say they did that with the 25th, and I wasn't like a massive fan of it being one piece.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But anyway, that would be cool. And obviously, yeah, the kind of was it grappling hook launcher? I mean, his original pick is a bit large, isn't it?
Yes. So I would say in place of the pick, some appropriate modern climbing gear. I'm going to be really interested to see what kind of shoes he's wearing as well.
They'll probably get boots, and they'll probably put those little crampons on, won't they?
Maybe something separate. Like that. Yeah.
That'd be kind of fun. Little crampons.
Yeah. Lots of carabiners. I expect to have carabiners on the figure.
Just mold them everywhere, like all over him. Like 3 on the backpack, couple on the belt, 1 on the jacket, 1 hanging from the rope. That'd be, yeah, just everywhere, all over him. So I think Alpine would be like I think he's probably going to be the one figure in the standard wave that gets like more accessories than the others do. I would imagine, personally. I think that's probably what they'll end up doing. Because that's sometimes they'll do that, won't they? Where it'll be like, yes, they're standard release figures, but some will come with more stuff than others, and you can see it almost being spread out, and some things being costed out here and going into that one, and you can kind of almost see their logic process on that one.
Yeah.
Iron Grenadier. This is a good one, and this is one that doesn't need to have a lot of things. I think the kind of the pistol, the kind of Uzi, the silencer, the sword, the sheath. That's pretty much it, really, isn't it?
It is. I'm eager to see that head sculpt, though. The helmet is going to be such an important key piece with this. And I'll even be just kind of interested to see how they handle the goggles, since the goggles are just kind of recessed and make up the area in between the mouth, the gas mask, and the helmet on the original figure.
Yeah.
How do they detail those out and make them fill in the blanks as they scale it up? I'm just assuming it's going to look like your vintage figure.
Would you go, if you were doing the design here, would you go for kind of a more muted kind of classified vibe, or would you? And I say that saying that they still do other things with classified depending on the situation of the figure, obviously. And in this case, would you go with a more ceremonial look with bright gold, or would you go with a more kind of troop look, like they're actually doing something and it's a little bit kind of coppery or like bronzy?
I would go with the more troop look and maybe change it up a bit for this release, and then do a retro carded figure that looks just exactly like the vintage one. That is probably fine, especially whenever you're dealing with troop builders that may have different ranks and different purposes.
Mark says
bagpipes.
Mark says you should have bagpipes, haggis, and iron brew. Genius, Mark. Obviously, Mark pulling out all of the Scottish stereotypes there. Brilliant. It'll have to be called the Iron Muck Grenadiers. Yeah, you're right. There's a definite Scottish vibe there. I want to see Destro in a kilt is what I want to see. I think that'd be a wicked figure.
I do too.
That would be
that'd
so
be really cool.
Destro and Rowdy Roddy Piper in kilts would be really dope, actually. I'd love to see that. Pastor Proggy says, really hope we get a Piper figure. Yeah. A giant caber, says Diana. Amazing. Tossing the caber, as I call it, as everyone calls it. Yes, Leon, exactly. He needs to toss his caber. Disgusting stuff. So anyway, Iron Grenadier. I think that's going to be a low-key sleeper, awesome figure. Honestly, when you think about what they did, the justice they gave the Crimson Guard.
Yes.
I just think this is going to be similar. I think this is going to be similarly awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm eager to see this. I'm hoping that the helmet gets the same attention that the Crimson Guard did, because I love that Crimson Guard. I bought a second one just because I love the helmet so much.
Big time. Diana says, is anything worn under the kilt or is it all in working order? Does anything get worn under kilts? Not most of the time, no. You go free and easy when you wear a kilt. Yeah, free range. Brilliant. 2-pack Scottish Destro and Scarlet. Was that her that was the family or lady? It was Lady J. Hi, it's me.
Lady J, yeah.
It was Destro and Lady J. Lady J, she inherited a castle or something. She went out to stay in it for a little bit and found Destro was there. And down and in the dungeon area, they had the kind of like tentacle beast that was in there as well. Hilarious. Anyway, yes, I'd be well up for. Oh, we should talk about it. Do you think with Metalhead, Iron Grenadiers, and Iron Grenadier Bat, we've got to see Destro at some point, right? With the despoiler, do you think that's a no-brainer?
I think that's a no-brainer for a San Diego something similar to the way that Serpentor was sold. You know, Destro's big news when he shows up in that sort of outfit. I think.
No, yeah. I mean, the cape, the gold head, the design is just phenomenal. Yeah, and the despoiler. I mean, it's probably small enough to be done as a Trouble Bubble size sort of release, right?
It is, yeah. So, I mean, it could be just a figure with vehicle. It may even be one that's on a list that we haven't figured out yet.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But
anyway,
I want one.
Yeah, I think that would be just sensational. Yeah, I'm up for that one, definitely. And then, of course, Iron Grenadier Bat, which I let slip by accident, and that's just how it is. Unfortunately, I know I'm an idiot. I was literally on a news burst when I was going through the list, and I said it out loud like an idiot. I nearly got to the 4th figure on that list, Pat.
Oh, really?
Yep. And the only reason I stopped was because I was like, I can't say that. And then I realized I'd already said one that I couldn't say. So well done me. Complete accident, no matter what you think. And I felt terrible for it. So I just rolled with it. And then, okay, I've made a mistake. Here you go. So Iron Grenadier Bat's coming as well. I mean, I personally think they're probably going to do something a little bit different with it in the same way they did with the Arctic Bat. And I will also say, all I know is the listing. That's all I know. So I haven't seen this. I don't know what's involved in it. Would you think they're going to do something Arctic Bat style, maybe a different head?
They're going to have to, because if it's an Iron Grenadier Bat, I mean, how would you get the bat to look like an Iron Grenadier without using a lot of the black base of the color?
Bagpipes, iron brew, haggis, kilt.
True. Yes. Bats wear pants. They could just as easily wear kilts.
Exactly. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you see? This is something that's come to mind because past program you mentioned the demon. Do you see them if they're going to do a lot of Iron Grenadier stuff, and you've got to have Destro and the Despoiler? That's a no-brainer. Do you see them doing any other vehicles?
Maybe the Evader with Darklon, maybe.
Yeah, because it's not huge, but it's still significant size-wise. Yeah, and that would get you Darklon too. So that's a good shout, actually. Yeah, yeah. Bat with a kilt. Yeah, absolutely. Don't knock it till you've put a kilt on a bat. Is all I'm going to say. Charlotte wants that too. She wants Charlotte wants Darklon and the Evader. Yeah, AGP actually, Leon. That's a good shout. The AGP is a good shout. Yeah, that would be like the version of the Trouble Bubble almost, I think. So yeah, that's probably a doable one. Anyway, yeah, cool. So that's the 3 of the 4 figures we know in that wave. Then we come to Starduster, Pat, and this is one to talk about because we know a little bit more about this now, and we know that MM is a designation that means something more significant. We know it's been used for vehicle kind of code words. But this is an MMDLX as opposed to an MMVEH. So, there's not much to really like. When I think about that, all I can think of is the jump pad.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. This could be something though simple, like where are we talking about Sergeant Slaughter? How he came with the mini Slaughter. There's a lot of things that you could do with Starduster that don't necessarily include having to have a full jump pad with him.
Right,
You
right.
have, you know, the additional mini something along with him, something
True.
that costs it up a little bit. It could even just be effect pieces that are flames, you know, to make him off the ground.
That's a good point. Yeah, like like holding him off the ground in the jump pack type sort of thing. Yeah. Actually, that's a really good point. I don't think we've really talked about that as a possibility in the past.
I don't think that we have.
Because I think we said something like flight stand. Jeremy's saying there like like jump pad, flight stand, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think, well, it could also just be something to suspend the figure without the effect being obvious.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. They're all good shouts actually, because like that might have been something they forewent with Steel Core, because of the fact they were coming with 2 figures with lots of accessories. So like it would have been like overkill to a degree. So that's a good point actually. And then if you've got like a couple of them, then you've got multiple stands to utilize. Problem is then I suppose maybe they approach it by like making Stardust almost a grunt style army builder.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
like, I could see that making sense.
Jetpack troopers kind of thing.
Yeah, especially at this size. I don't think that it would be awful, since they've already used the Steel Brigade style helmet on multiple characters. Why not use it on one that was also a mail-in?
It would make sense, because then you've got the Steel Core with jetpacks as well. So it's kind of like this little army of, you know, jetpack pilot helmet. Oh, and it would be the pilot helmet one as well. Would be kind of cool, wouldn't it? Like if they reuse that again. Because on the Steel Core, you've got 2 different types of helmet. You've got the Steel Core one, and then you've got that kind of like slightly adapted pilot version.
Yeah, and then the other ones that we've seen are not all the same either. Because
no.
One comes with clutch is different. The one with grunt is different.
Clutch is a helmet as well, I believe. I think that goes over his head. Yeah, I believe it goes over his head.
Oh, okay.
But you're right. It's a completely different design. It's got one little, you know, antenna and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Phil pointed out to me actually that the grunt one is different than the one that's inside the 2-pack. Nuts,
man. Like the funny thing, people always say like, oh, they'll reuse the head for this character. I'm like, they don't even do the same head twice for like a helmet, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised they didn't just do a brand new head sculpt for the Python Crimson Guard. Just randomly make a new head sculpt and tooling for it. Okay, cool. So you've got, obviously we've talked about this figure before, because obviously it came up before, and twice before we came up as a rumor, and then was name only revealed. So now we're in this position where we can talk about it in an even more official capacity. But like I said, we know it's an MM Deluxe, but we don't know what that entails. The big money, I would probably say, is on a jump pad. But I wouldn't put it past them to do something like Pat just mentioned, because I think this also makes a lot of sense. Some sort of flight stand that acted also like a display with maybe even some cool blast effects to show it kind of in flight. I think that'd be really cool, or taking off and stuff like that.
Maybe it's just a shirt for Quick Kick, like on the cover of that little cereal box. Start up, slides in, and gives Quick Kick a shirt.
Cereal box deep cut there from Pat. Drops the Action Stars deep cut. T-shirt for clothing for Quick Kick, please. Amazing stuff. Anyway, next up we also have Nemesis Immortal, Pat. So this one we know is a deluxe, no other designation, so this is probably going to be a $34.99 sort of price point situation. Bigger figure, the wings, that enough for you, do you think, for this in this case?
I want some crazy Cobra Law accessories in there. And we've talked about the elbow spikes that I'm curious to see how those are handled.
Yes.
There's a lot of curiosity here for me. I want him to be really good.
Oh, definitely. And he's going to be, I've got a feeling he's going to be like, it's going to have to be a unique build, number one.
And the textures. Like the textures that I expect to see are going to be very crustacean inspired and biological animal. Like you could get several different textures just for the different areas of the character that we see. And that's one of the ways that classified has been good.
Yeah.
Is that some of the details that are in there look amazing texture wise, but obviously like the bat wings, if they're not going to do cloth, I want them to have that veiny, maybe even a see-through look to them, the way that skin does.
Yeah, that kind of flesh on the wings sort of scenario.
Yeah. But yeah, I could see a lot of different stuff on him making a lot of sense to have like just crazy, a crazy surface to it.
I think that they'd be really silly not to include the squidgy face hugger that he throws at the Sarge, because they could easily do some cool photos where Nemesis Forcer has thrown that squidgy face hugger on the Sergeant Slaughter figure, and he's like, his hat's gone and his shades are off and the squidgy face hugger's on and he's getting punched and, you know, that kind of stuff. That, I mean, they'd be crazy not to do something that fit on a figure's face, wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure. That needs to be included, definitely. Like, so that's what I'm talking about, some crazy Cobra Law stuff that so weapons like that. I mean, that one specifically, yes.
You could put the face hugger on Falcon.
Just never look at it again.
Yeah, brilliant. Anyway, yes. So yeah, I'm this is going to have to be a big old boy as well, because in the actual continuity, Nemesis Enforcer is the biggest character, like the tallest. He's bigger than Serpentor. He's bigger than pretty much everyone, I think. I don't think I mean, Globulus, when he stands on his tippy tail, is probably the tallest. But sure. I would say that Nemesis Enforcer has to be. They have to do him huge. And the fact that they're not reusing tooling, they're not, because this is going to have to be unique. There's no reuse on this figure anywhere that I can see. If they're going to do something that looks like this original one, then it's going to have to be taller than Serpentor. The wings are going to have to be massive. And I think personally, just practicality wise, they'll probably end up with two different types of wings. It'll be one big open set and one closed set, or semi-closed set, is what I expect them to do. If they do something cooler than that, I'm all for it. And I will obviously, wait with bated breath to see what it looks like. But I think this one's going to be pretty special, honestly.
I agree. Yeah. I forget what I had something else to say along there, but I just got lost in everything that you were talking about.
I'm putting you to sleep. That's what's happening. I think, is that everything?
That is everything, yes. We're all the way to shout-outs already.
Right, let's get on to shout-outs. Let's bring this one to a close, and then we can both go to sleep, right? Because I think, this is just... we're both dying on our butts.
Have you tried Hoarder yet? No? Well, you need to. If you have a collection of things and want to create a fun and easy way of organising it and of course showing it off, then get involved. You can post items and build collections, and you can drop a status like getting a fun delivery or seeing some awesome related stuff on your travels. Build your collections with Hoarder. The app is free to download on Google Play and the App Store, so what are you waiting for? Get to hoarding.
All right, anyway, yes. Jamie Lynn has asked, any guesses on Retro Azrael? Actually, funny you should say that. We don't know who it is, and we can't speculate because that gives more information away that we have. But I don't think it's anything crazy, Jamie Lynn. I don't think there's anything like new or anything. It's probably just going to be one of those figures that we've maybe already had in a slightly different way. But we won't know until we get more information. And at the moment, we're just guessing. But we don't know. Merry Christmas. Thank you, Alvega. Appreciate that. That's very nice of you to say. We're going to be like, Pat, are you aware what we're doing next week? Friday. What is Friday? Is it like Christmas Eve? I feel like, it's the 22nd next week. So the 22nd on Friday will be our Christmas weekly. So Pat and I will be... You and I will just be doing the Christmas weekly. That'll be our Christmas episode. Is that cool, mate?
Yes. Yeah, that'll be fun.
Cool. Yeah. And then we've also got a monthly in the works that's going to work as our New Year's special, because I'm lazy like that. So we'll be kicking off the monthlies again in January, and we'll start with a New Year's special, and we'll be doing that. When I tell everyone what we're doing, and try and work out availability in the next couple of days, because it's going to be hard to do. TOR Retro Snow Serpent is I've forgotten the code word. It doesn't have one yet. Retro Snow Serpent just came listings wise as Retro Snow Serpent. Will either of us be at Joe Fest, Pat, in 2024?
Yes, I'm at Charlock at AR, and I think that we may have talked about it. No, we probably didn't. But yes, he was the one that won the custom contest.
Yeah,
at AR. Yeah. So that was awesome. His Xandar figure.
Nice.
But yeah, I do plan to be at Joe Fest. Usually I'm running around doing multiple things. I will probably be doing a panel again with Chris Murray at Joe Fest.
Cool.
And I also help my friends from the toy department and with their booth that is at Joe Fest, because they always need help, and it's just a fun, chaotic time. And yeah, I try. My plan is to be there. So unless something happens, the answer for me is yes. I don't know about yourself.
Not sure yet. We'll have to make a decision on that a little bit closer to the time. But obviously, there's so many, like, unfortunately, there's a lot more logistics that go into our situation. But we will, yeah. I mean, I'd like to try. There's lots of cool shows I want to do. I want to do AR. I want to do, Joe Fest. There's a bunch, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, first shout outs, Pat, other than all the people in the comments who I've just literally shouted out there. What is it? What is it? Who is it? Is the question.
It's going to be Philip, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And I think that Philip's going to have a fun video for everybody this month at some point, probably later on. No. Yeah, Philip was working hard. He made something pretty cool for us, and it's just going to be a matter of, is that going to be this month's or next month's video? But I think it'll be this month's.
And if you haven't checked it out, go check out that Back to the Future episode. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
So good.
A lot of work into that if it doesn't show.
Link in the description, please, and thank you. Go check out the YouTube channel. Go watch that video. It's amazing. And you get to see Pat's bro as well, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And yeah, like as you say, lots of work went into it, and you can tell it's really, really awesome. Yeah, so shout out to Phil as well, of course. Shout out to Kate and Phoebes and the fam and all of those. We're still loving our house, and I'll be hopefully busting the HISS tank out in there on a video at some point this weekend. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I do want to do it though. I really do want to crack it out on a live. Anyway, love to all. And of course to Brian Sauer for our amazing graphics. We're now in the Bushido winter graphics period of our lives. Because it was so bloody cold, I just decided to go ahead with it already, because I felt like what was it, the 21st is winter officially, I think. It might even be, I think it is the 21st. So
I think you're right, yeah.
Little early on that one. But still, we're going to have these for a while, because it just seems to be cold all the time. And then all of a sudden it's really bloody hot. What's it like where you are right now?
I haven't been outside today, but it's probably somewhere in the 50s, I think, today.
Son of a bee.
I think.
Yeah, it's
maybe 40s. It's
really cold out here. Anyway, shout out to Brian and all the great work that you do for our graphics, mate. We love them. And of course, to you in the chat, all of our listeners, viewers, patrons, all of you guys, thank you so much for everything. I've got a few things lined up for our patrons this weekend, so keep a lookout for those. We'll be doing a live soon, but it's just getting the time at the moment. But we'll be trying to do that over the weekend as well. Like I said, I'll let you guys know when that happens. We've hopefully got the Kerry Vandenberg interview going up as well. And then I don't know when BMAC, Emily, and Lenny interviews are going to happen. But, there's so much going on at Hasbro at the moment. I don't blame them for, having to deal with that at the moment. So hopefully we'll get it done soon. But that's it. Pretty much. Pat, thanks very much for joining me on another weekly.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, as always.
We did an hour and a half. That's pretty significant.
It is. Yeah, an hour and a half of bad news and code names.
Pat, that's got to be your worst, like your least favorite episode to ever have done ever, hasn't it?
This is we need some good news across the next week. This Christmas needs to bring us a present of something fun, like something positive and enjoyable and not expensive.
I was genuinely expecting Higher Toys to have revealed another thing this morning.
Yeah.
I was like, it's going to come. It's going to happen. It'll probably happen now. It's probably happened since we've been on.
Probably happened right now. Yeah, while we've been on.
Literally just dropped it. But anyway, no, thank you very much, Bud. And thank you to everyone watching today. Hope you had a good time, despite the very somber, difficult, rubbish, horrible news we had to talk about. And of course, Pat's favorite listings news as well. Anyway, stay fresh cheese bags. And as always, after 3, you know what to do. Let's keep the energy going. Come on, let's have a good weekend.
Yes. Let's end positive. All right, let's do this.
2.
Let's do it.
3.
Full force.
Explosions. Make sure you get involved with the discussion by liking, sharing and commenting on these videos, and as always you can keep up with the show after listening by following on X, formerly Twitter, @TheFullForce, liking the Facebook page, facebook.com/TheFullForce. We've also added a brand new Instagram, so check us out there as well @TheFullForce Podcast, and if you would like to contact the show you can message us on any of those platforms with feedback and questions. We also have a Patreon page, so if you want to show your support for the show, see your name up in lights on these videos, or enjoy exclusive bonus content, then check out patreon.com/TheFullForce Podcast, or click on the link on any of the posts this podcast appears in. Full Force.